It's my ardent request that go through information, research a little bit about what they might have gotten wrong. If you're interested in writing a 1,000-page, 1,000 article, 1,000 word, I apologize, 1,000-word article, do contribute to anything through your writing, through creating adequate literature. It's not the job of the government every time. Namaste and welcome to A Questioning Mind. I'm your host Sagarika, and it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, so if you've stuck around and waited for me, thank you so much for being here. And if you're new, we typically discuss history, culture, economics, and all of those things. On today's video, what we will be doing is going through an article that I wrote for CNN News 18 last month, where we discussed how freedom of religion reports are essentially a scam. This comes very conveniently also in the wake of HARMEET being reviled by members of her own party, which is the Republican Party in the US. So she's an American lawyer who's very famously very pro-Khalistani, anti-Hindu, rather bigoted person who gives out a lot of statements against India as well as the Hindu population of the country. However, she's been a very high up member of the Republican Party in the US, as well as was considered close to the Trump administration when President Trump was in power. Considering that she offered ardas at the party at a party convention a couple of days ago, there's been a huge controversy with white ethno-fascist members, white Christian ethno-fascist members of the Republican Party, as well as those who support them, calling out how her praying to a god they consider demonic has caused her to release statements about how Sikhism is essentially monotheistic. It is somewhere between monistic as well as monotheistic, depending on the definition, but she's come out with a clear apology of sorts, as well as an acknowledgement that I essentially meant to pray only to the monotheistic God, comparing Sikhism with Christianity in that sense, so that she's not as reviled by the people of her own party. Now, considering that this is the state of very mainstream politics in the US, this country should be the last person commenting about religious freedom in other countries. However, they use this sort of lecturing as a means to hold countries to account who they think are getting a little too comfortable in their growth. In this case, it's mostly India. Sometimes it is also Bangladesh, because that's a country that has been going through a similar hectoring process. However, and religious radicalism in Bangladesh is very real, by the way, at least in Bangladeshi society, even though the government tries to keep it at a reasonable level. However, the freedom to practice religion in India is something that Secretary of State Anthony Blinken had commented upon a couple of weeks ago, and it's been picked up by Ambassador of the US to India, Eric Garcetti, who leaves no stone unturned to make sure that his administration's constant displeasure with India is made known. So his job as an ambassador has often been to lecture about moral values, in the sense that India should be exactly an ideal version of the US instead of being India. So, of a US vassal, to be honest, not even they, because they obviously, like I mentioned, the HARMEET episode, they do not follow any of what they preach. They do not practice any of what they preach. So, with all of that, what I go through in my article, which you should read, because I've linked that in the description below, it's from CNN News 18, again, check it out. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you may not have come across it before. So, a lot of the data that such reports process is not only exaggerated, it is all out misinformation. One of the points that I made was where one data point showcased 20,000 Christians coming out in protest in Delhi. Now that seems to me to be a very large number. If one knows the Christian population is about 0.3% of the entire country's population, and for 20,000 to gather in Delhi and for the rest of the country to have not heard about this would be a little bit odd, especially because it's something that did not get covered by the mainstream. However, 20,000 is a very large number. So I went back and I checked the details, and it turns out that approximately 2,000 people had registered protests. This number also seems exaggerated. However, one Christian publication based out of the US, transcribed the number 2,000 as 20,000, and from then every publication has carried that number, which then got fed into the Religious Freedom Report, where it showcased a very large population of Christians protesting. Now, this sort of behavior, this sort of absolutely incorrect data being platformed as being accurate, is constant throughout such reports. Moreover, one of the major organizations that also contributes to such data and reports is the USCIRF, the US Council for International Religious Freedom. Now, this council has primarily been comprised of people, evangelical Christians, who have looked for religious freedom to mean only forced as well as unforced conversion to Christianity. That's pretty much what has been covered by them, and the Indian government has made many comments about how the USCIRF reports are completely illegitimate, and the organization itself is something that should be dealt with a lot more caution. Now, moreover, in addition to being a publication that has been handled by evangelical Christians, pastors actually, so it's obviously not without its biases in terms of religious freedom. Disinfolab, an Indian outlet that has been publishing exposés of sorts into CIA-funded organizations, etc., has also showcased how Islamist groups such as IMC and CARE in the US have essentially had jihadists infiltrate the USCIRF, especially to act against Indian interests. Now, why this is important, we can all keep saying that we don't need a counter, it's just some country saying something, it's white people, it's English people. One, it's bigoted. We should allow everybody to have their say. However, we should also be able to hold them accountable as well as counter misinformation like that. It requires effort, which is why if you're watching it, do contribute to anything through your writing, through creating adequate literature that allows the right side also to make more accurate data-centric claims that actually prove such reports incorrect, right? It's not the job of the government every time. As you can see, a lot of this funding in the US as well as Europe is from private organizations, and this is really how change comes about. If it were all government organized, we'd be a communist nation, right? That's not something that you and I would want to live in. So it's my ardent request that go through information, research a little bit about what they might have gotten wrong, like I did with the 20,000 number. Just read a little more, and if you have any, if you're interested in writing a 1,000-word I apologize, a 1,000-word article, why don't you drop me a comment just below this video? So I'll get back to you, I'll respond to you if you've written a 1,000-word article on the subject about how indices and reports negatively affect India and how they can be countered, what parameters. Speaking of parameters, I did write one about the democracy report some time ago, and we did a video which I will link somewhere here. So these are things that need to be done. I do it myself, and I know how hard it is for us to be involved, having a day job separately, having so many other commitments, and then having to contribute. But you can't call yourselves, true citizens until you're contributing to the growth of the nation and helping the country do better behavior at a foreign policy level is a thing that should concern you and should have your participation as well. So now, going back to the article itself and the report, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of points that have been made incorrectly, but one thing that is very clear is that the US is not holding back on being an absolute bully in the foreign policy space, and but especially towards India. And the constant meetings that the Prime Minister is having with Russian counterparts as well as Russian administrative people is something that seems to have riled them further, which explains the timing also of the report. Right after it was announced that Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be visiting Moscow to meet with President Vladimir Putin is when this report was published. So their meeting was due on the 8th of July, and this report, I believe, was published and discussed on probably the 6th of July. And I suppose we're in an age of misinformation, but even then some information trickles through. So now we had a lot of Indian analysts comment on the suspicious timing of the report, which is a good thing. Previously we just had to sit back and take it, but now we have a lot of analysts who aren't pretending to not know what these things are about. So it's a clever ploy, but it doesn't fly any longer with the government. I also criticized the present government for being too lenient with these reports. You can't just come out and give one press conference saying that no, this is the wrong, this is incorrect data, we don't care about these reports, because this has happened year on year. The External Affairs Ministry has a spokesperson who will come out and bash this report, and that's it. We offered no counter. We offered no data by ourselves. From an Indian perspective, what is the Indian perspective? There is a lot of freedom of religion, there's personal laws in place, which personally I absolutely disagree with. As a country that is supposed to be secular, we cannot actually have personal laws. So, but either way, we have them, and there are more minority institutions receive a lot more monetary benefits than Hindu institutions, which some call majority, but they're not the majority in every Indian state. So this actually is not true in the US. So there's a lot of comparisons and analogies and studies that can be done to disprove all of this at every level. It's been done with the VDEM democracy report as well, but it needs to be platformed adequately. Unless more of us are talking about these things, not too much is going to change. So if you're watching this video, don't just like and subscribe. Please do like and subscribe, because I really need that. This will make the YouTube algorithm show it to more people, and it's free, right? So just do that. But also, in addition to that, do put in some effort in wording your thoughts, right? Just outraging and being clickbaity and having pithy statements does not make you very, informed. It might make you clever in a moment, but you don't leave anything for the country to take back. So do that, and I'll see you very soon. I hope to not take a very long break again, but next week is when I will also be doing another video about a very different topic. So I hope you stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.